Today our objectives are to, first of all, you should be able to distinguish between the different types of osmotic solutions. We have a hypertonic solution. We have an isotonic solution. And we have a hypo. So hypertonic, hypotonic, and isotonic. The three types of osmotic solutions. So you should be able to distinguish between the three. You should be able to tell me what will happen with a plant cell and an animal cell in the three different types of osmotic solutions too. Okay? So those are our objectives for today. Now, you're going to need your colored pencils because once you fill out the card on your flip box, you're going to color it. So you're going to need your colored pencils out to color these things certain colors. So let's start out with a hypotonic solution. Hypotonic solution. Now, when I look at the hypotonic solution, here is the picture of it. Okay? So after we write this down, you're going to color those different diagram those colors. Now, on our hypotonic solution, okay, there is a higher concentration inside the cell than outside. Water moves into the cell to equal out the concentration. Remember that osmosis, okay, osmosis is the diffusion of water. So, as we're talking about these three types of solutions, they're diffusing of water. Now, if you look, okay, right here at this cell, okay, and here, we have a higher concentration of the little yellow dots inside the cell than we do outside the cell, right? So what's going to happen is water is going to move inside that cell to try to equal out the concentrations of yellow dots. Okay? So in a hypotonic solution, okay, the water will move into the cell to try to equal out the concentration. Obviously, we can see that there are a heck of a lot more yellow dots inside than outside, so water is going to move inside that cell. Now, what happens? In an animal cell, the cell will swell, and if it swells so much, it could possibly burst. Okay? It could possibly burst due to too much water moving in there. So, if we look at these, which are animal cells represented up here, this one up the top is a red blood cell, so that is an animal cell. This cell in the beaker is also an animal cell, so those are the two represented. The cell will swell, and it could possibly burst. What about a plant cell? What about a plant cell? Well, the cell will remain in a normal turgid state, but the vacuoles are swelled and full. See how the cell wall, usually the cell wall is a square, isn't it? Usually the cell wall is a square. See how this cell wall is swelled and full? Okay? It's getting chubbier, that little cell is. So as that cell is getting chubbier, we call that a turgid state. A turgid state. So what I would like for you to do, okay, I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to do it. You're not going to need a whole long time, but go ahead and start at least putting the colors where they need to be. So ladies and gentlemen, this is our hypotonic solution. Moving on. Moving on, let's go to an isotonic solution. An isotonic solution. What is it? Okay, here's our picture. We're in the middle one, right? What is an isotonic solution? The inside of the cell and the outside has an equal proportion of concentration. So inside the cell and outside the cell are both equal. Water will be continuously flowing in and it will be continuously flowing out, but it's flowing in and out at equal amounts. Therefore, the concentration is still balanced. The concentration is balanced. So we still have a movement of water from outside to inside. We have a movement of water from inside to outside the cell, but they're moving at the same rate. Therefore, we have consistent water flow in and out. That is isotonic. Now, let's look at the plant. Let's look at the animal. Okay? In the animal cell, the red blood cell, the one in the beaker, the cell is in a normal condition as homeostasis has been met. The cell is in a normal condition because homeostasis has been met. It's at equilibrium. The animal cell. The animal cell is also in a normal condition. The vacuole, the large central vacuole, is full, but it's not overfilled. Okay? Do you see these cell walls? Are these cell walls bulging out? Are they bulging out? No, it looks like our typical square, doesn't it? Therefore, that is in the normal state for that particular plant cell. So go ahead and color these cells in too. We talked about hypotonic. We've talked about isotonic. So the third one we're going to talk about here is we're going to talk about hypertonic. Hypertonic. So a hypertonic solution is going to be one in which the concentration inside is less than outside of the cell. Water will move out of the cell to try to even out the concentration. So if you look at these cells, right here, this cell, you can tell that there's a greater amount of yellow dots outside than inside the cell. There's a greater amount of yellow dots outside the cell than inside the cell. So, where is the water going to go? The water is going to go outside of the cell to try to even out the concentration. What do you think happened to this red blood cell up here? Look at it. Does it look different? What's happened? What's happened? Does it look like it's shriveling up, doesn't it? So, the cell has lost so much water that it is shriveled. The cell loses so much water that it shrivels. What about the animal cell? Or excuse me, what about the plant cell? Well, the plant cell, the vacuole, look at that vacuole. Look at that blue vacuole there. It has lost water. The cytoplasm actually shrinks away from the cell wall, causing the loss of the turgidity. What does that mean? That just means that the plant will wilt. Have you ever seen a plant that was wilted? It looks like it's literally going to die for a drink of water, doesn't it? Okay? You see that plant. That plant is wilted because it has lost so much water. The concentration outside of the plant cell is greater than the concentration inside. Okay? So the water is moving out of that cell. Once that happens, the plant wilts. Okay? If the plant doesn't get any water, will it eventually die? Absolutely. If it doesn't get any water, it will eventually die because it has wilted so much. Yeah.
It's like these solutions. Is this similar to like how like concentration, how pressure works? I feel like that's similar, like a high pressure with a low pressure, that it gets squeezed, things like that.
Not really, but so we have the three different types of solutions: a hypertonic solution, a hypotonic solution, and an isotonic solution.